I gave birth. During my rejection ceremony, the Alpha King stopped it to cut the cord. The ceremonial grounds of the Silver Moon Pack had never felt so vast, so exposed. Celeste stood at the center of the ancient stone circle, her swollen belly pressing against the thin fabric of the white rejection gown they'd forced her to wear. The late afternoon sun beat down mercilessly, and beneath her bare feet, the packed earth radiated heat that seemed to mirror the burning shame coursing through her veins. 300 pack members formed a ring around her, their faces a blur of judgment and curiosity. She could feel their eyes on her stomach, could hear the whispered speculation carried on the spring breeze. Her hands trembled as she clasped them over her daughter, the child who had been both her greatest joy and the catalyst for her complete destruction. Beta Marcus stood across from her, resplendent in his ceremonial leathers, his dark hair gleaming in the sunlight. Once, she'd thought him handsome. Once, she'd believed the mate bond between them was destiny's gift. Now, looking at the cold calculation in his amber eyes, she wondered how she'd ever mistaken cruelty for strength. "Let the rejection ceremony begin." Alpha Thorn's voice boomed across the grounds. Celeste's former pack leader stood on the raised dais, his expression carefully neutral, but she knew better. He'd orchestrated this public spectacle, had insisted on the traditional ceremonial grounds rather than the privacy of the pack house. Humiliation was part of her punishment for daring to keep a child her mate didn't want. Marcus stepped forward, and the crowd fell silent. "I, Beta Marcus Ashford of the Silver Moon Pack, call upon the Moon Goddess to bear witness." His voice carried clearly, practiced, and confident. "I stand before my pack to formally reject the bond forced upon me by fate." Each word landed like a physical blow. Celeste's wolf whimpered deep within her consciousness, already weakened by months of Marcus's emotional distance and outright hostility. The bond between them, once warm and golden, had withered to a brittle thread that caused her nothing but pain. A sharp cramp seized Celeste's lower abdomen, stealing her breath. She gasped, pressing one hand to her belly. "Not now. Please, not now." "I reject you, Celeste Thorne, and the bastard child you carry," Marcus continued, his lips curling with disgust. "You defied my direct command to terminate this pregnancy. You chose that creature over your mate, over your pack duties, over everything we could have built together." "She's your daughter," Celeste whispered, her voice cracking. Another cramp, stronger this time, radiated through her pelvis. "Marcus, please." "Silence," Alpha Thorn commanded. "The rejected has no voice in this ceremony. You will speak only when commanded to accept the rejection." Tears burned behind Celeste's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She wouldn't give them that satisfaction. Her daughter shifted within her, a rolling movement that usually brought comfort, but now sent a spike of alarm through her chest. Something was wrong. The cramping intensified, and she felt a warm trickle of fluid run down her inner thigh. "No. No, no, no." Marcus was still talking, listing her supposed failures and transgressions before the assembled pack. "Refused to prioritize pack security over personal desires. Displayed weakness unbefitting a beta's mate. Brought shame to my family name." The next contraction hit like a sledgehammer. Celeste's knees buckled, and she barely caught herself, one hand shooting out to brace against the ceremonial stone pillar beside her. The rough granite bit into her palm as she struggled to stay upright. She couldn't collapse. If she showed this weakness now, they would use it against her baby. "I don't accept," she managed through gritted teeth. If she could just delay the ceremony, just hold on, until she could get somewhere safe. "You will accept the rejection, Celeste," Alpha Thorn growled, "or we will remove you from pack lands by force, and you'll give birth as a rogue in the wilderness. Is that what you want for your precious child?" A rogue. The word sent ice through her veins despite the fire in her belly. Wolves without packs rarely survived, and a newborn infant would have no chance at all. Her wolf snarled weakly, fury and terror mixing in equal measure, but they both knew the truth. They were trapped. Another contraction seized her, stronger and longer than the last. This time, her legs gave out entirely. Celeste crumpled to the ground, a cry of pain tearing from her throat before she could stop it. The warm fluid wasn't just a trickle now. Her water had broken, pooling beneath her on the sacred earth. "I'm in labor," she gasped, looking up at Marcus with desperate hope. Surely this would change things. Surely he wouldn't continue this cruelty while she was actively giving birth to his child. "Marcus, the baby—" "Then you'd better accept the rejection quickly," he said coldly, not moving from his position. "Or deliver it alone." The crowd murmured, some sounding shocked, others merely curious. No one moved to help her. No one even stepped forward. Celeste curled on her side, arms wrapped around her contracting belly, and felt the last fragile hope inside her shatter. She was going to give birth here, on the ceremonial grounds, surrounded by people who hated her, while being rejected by her mate. Her daughter would enter this world amid shame and pain and abandonment. What kind of life could she possibly give her child after this? "Fine," Celeste choked out between contractions. "I accept." "Stop this at once!" The command rang across the ceremonial grounds with such absolute authority that every wolf present immediately fell silent. Celeste's head jerked up, searching for the source of that voice, deep and resonant, carrying the unmistakable weight of an alpha's dominance, but magnified 100-fold. The crowd parted like water, pack members stumbling over themselves to clear a path. Through the gap strode a man who seemed to carry the power of the full moon itself. He was tall, with broad shoulders that strained against his black shirt, and moved with a predator's fluid grace. Dark hair fell across his forehead, slightly disheveled as if he'd been running. But it was his eyes that captured Celeste's attention. Storm gray and burning with a fury that made even Alpha Thorn take a step back. Alpha King Ronan. Celeste recognized him from the stories, though she'd never seen him in person. He ruled the royal pack and, by extension, held authority over all the packs in the Northern Territories. What was he doing here? "Your Majesty," Alpha Thorn stammered, bowing deeply. "We didn't expect you until tomorrow's council meeting. This is merely an internal pack matter." "Internal?" Ronan's voice could have cut steel. He reached Celeste in 3 long strides and dropped to his knees beside her, without any apparent concern for the dirt or his expensive clothes. His large hands were surprisingly gentle as they touched her shoulder. "A woman is giving birth on bare ground while being rejected by her mate, and you call this an internal matter?" Up close, his scent washed over Celeste, pine and midnight and something wild that made her wolf stir with interest despite her weakness. His eyes met hers, and for just a moment the pain receded. There was something in his gaze, something that felt like recognition, like coming home after a long journey. "Help me," Celeste whispered, hating how broken she sounded but past the point of pride. "Please, my baby." "I've got you," Ronan said, and the absolute certainty in those 3 words made her believe him. He looked up at the crowd, his expression thunderous. "Someone bring blankets, hot water, and a midwife. Now." The pack members scattered into motion, responding to his command with an alacrity they'd never shown for their own Alpha's orders. Celeste felt another contraction building and whimpered, her body taking over now that the terror had temporarily receded. "Breathe," Ronan coached, his hand moving to support her back. "I need you to breathe through it. Can you do that for me?" Celeste nodded, trying to focus on his voice rather than the tearing sensation in her abdomen. The contraction peaked, and she heard herself cry out, fingers digging into the earth. Ronan's other hand found hers, and she gripped it with desperate strength. He didn't even flinch. "Your Majesty, perhaps we should move her to the pack house." Marcus suggested, though he still hadn't come closer. This is unseemly for someone of your station. If you value your tongue, you'll be silent, Ronan said without looking at him. In fact, Beta Marcus, I suggest you leave these grounds immediately. The sight of you is distressing your mate. She's not my mate anymore. I was in the process of rejecting. Ronan's head turned, and whatever Marcus saw in the Alpha King's eyes made him fall silent and take several steps back. Good. Celeste felt a savage satisfaction even through her pain. Let him feel fear for once. Wolves rushed forward with blankets and supplies. Someone had even brought a birthing kit from the pack medical supplies. Ronan coordinated everything with calm efficiency, as if delivering babies on ceremonial grounds was something he did regularly. He positioned blankets beneath Celeste, creating a clean space, and helped her into a more comfortable position. The midwife is coming, but I don't think we have time to wait, an older woman said, kneeling on Celeste's other side. She was one of the pack healers, though Celeste couldn't remember her name through the haze of pain. The baby's crowning already. Then we deliver her here, Ronan said simply. He looked at Celeste, and again, she was struck by the intensity of his focus. When he looked at her, she felt like the only person in the world. You're strong enough to do this. I can see it. Can you feel it? Celeste wasn't sure she could feel anything except pain, but she nodded anyway. What choice did she have? The next minutes blurred together in a kaleidoscope of sensation. The pressure, the burning, the overwhelming urge to push. Ronan's voice in her ear, steady and encouraging. The healer's hands, competent and sure. The faces of the crowd, no longer judgmental, but shocked and uncertain. And through it all, the constant warmth of Ronan's presence beside her, anchoring her to the moment. One more push, the healer urged. Come on, dear, one more. Celeste bore down with everything she had left, and then suddenly, blessedly, the pressure released. A thin, warbling cry split the air, the most beautiful sound she'd ever heard. It's a girl, the healer announced, her voice thick with emotion. A perfect, healthy girl. Through tears, Celeste watched as the healer lifted her daughter, small and red and screaming with impressive lung capacity. The umbilical cord still connected them, pulsing with life. The healer reached for a ceremonial knife from the pack's birthing kit, but Ronan's hand shot out. May I? He asked quietly. The healer blinked in surprise but handed him the blade without question. No one questioned an Alpha King. Ronan's hands were steady as he cut the cord with practiced precision, separating mother and child with a reverence that brought fresh tears to Celeste's eyes. Clean her up, Ronan instructed, and the healer quickly wiped the infant down with soft cloths before wrapping her in a clean blanket. Then, carefully, she placed the baby in Celeste's arms. The moment Celeste held her daughter, the entire world realigned. Nothing else mattered. Not the rejection, not the pain, not the uncertain future. This tiny being was everything. Her daughter had a perfect rosebud mouth, delicate features, and when her eyes fluttered open, they were the deep blue of all newborns, searching and curious. Hello, little one, Celeste whispered, her voice breaking. I'm your mama. I'm so sorry about all of this. But I promise I'll keep you safe. I promise. A large shadow fell over them, and Celeste looked up to find Ronan standing, facing the assembled pack. His expression was carved from granite, and the alpha dominance radiating from him made several wolves whimper and drop their gazes. Let it be known throughout all packs, Ronan declared, his voice carrying to every corner of the grounds, that I, Alpha King Ronan of the Royal Pack, claim this woman and her daughter under my personal protection. Any who would harm them, threaten them, or continue this mockery of a rejection ceremony will answer to me directly. Is that understood? Silence. Then, like a wave, Every wolf present, including Alpha Thorn and Beta Marcus, bowed their heads in submission. I said, "Is that understood?" Ronan's power pressed down on them all. "Yes, Your Majesty." The crowd responded in unison. Ronan turned back to Celeste, and his expression softened completely. He knelt beside her again, reaching out one finger to gently stroke the baby's cheek. The infant turned toward his touch, and something flickered across his face. Wonder, perhaps, or recognition. "What will you name her?" he asked softly. Celeste looked down at her daughter, then up at the darkening sky where the first stars were beginning to appear. The moon was rising, nearly full, casting silver light across them all. "Luna," she whispered. "Her name is Luna." Ronan smiled then, and it transformed his entire face. "Luna," he repeated. "It's perfect." He stood and scooped Celeste up in his arms with impossible ease, cradling both her and the baby against his chest. Celeste should have protested. She barely knew this man, Alpha King or not, but exhaustion and shock had stolen her strength. She let her head rest against his shoulder, breathing in that pine and midnight scent while Luna made small squeaking sounds between them. "I'm taking them to the Royal Pack headquarters," Ronan announced. "Healer, you'll accompany us. Alpha Thorn, Beta Marcus, we will speak tomorrow about what transpired here today. I suggest you both spend tonight contemplating whether you want to keep your positions." With that, he turned and strode from the ceremonial grounds, Celeste and Luna secure in his arms. Behind them, the Silver Moon Pack stood in stunned silence. As they left, Celeste caught one last glimpse of Marcus's face. He looked pale, shocked, and for the first time since he'd discovered her pregnancy, genuinely afraid. Good. Let him be afraid. Let him wonder what he'd done. But as the ceremonial grounds disappeared behind them, and Ronan's steady heartbeat thrummed beneath her ear, Celeste found she couldn't summon the energy to think about Marcus at all. Her mate bond with him was still there, a painful tether that would need to be formally severed, but it seemed distant now, unimportant. What mattered was the warm bundle in her arms and the strong man carrying them both toward an uncertain future. What mattered was that, against all odds, she and Luna had survived. Everything else would have to wait until tomorrow. When Celeste woke, she didn't immediately remember where she was. The mattress beneath her was impossibly soft, nothing like the thin pallet she'd slept on in Marcus's quarters. High-thread count sheets whispered against her skin, and the air smelled of cedar and lavender. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating a bedroom that was easily 3 times the size of her old room. Then the events of the previous day crashed back over her, and she jackknifed upright with a gasp. "Luna!" "Right here, dear," a gentle voice said. "She's perfectly safe." Celeste's head whipped to the side. An elderly woman with silver hair and kind eyes sat in a rocking chair beside the bed, holding Luna swaddled in a soft blue blanket. The baby was sleeping peacefully, her tiny face relaxed and content. "Who?" Celeste's voice came out as a croak. Her throat was raw from screaming during labor. "I'm Healer Margaret," the woman said, rising smoothly and bringing Luna closer. "I've been caring for you and your daughter while you slept. It's been about 15 hours. You needed the rest after what you went through." 15 hours? Celeste's arms ached with the need to hold her baby. Margaret seemed to understand, because she gently transferred Luna into Celeste's waiting embrace. The moment her daughter was against her chest, some tight knot in Celeste's stomach loosened. She was real. This was real. "Where am I?" Celeste asked, though she suspected she already knew. "The Royal Pack Mansion in the Alpha King's private wing," Margaret confirmed. "His Majesty insisted you be given the safest, most comfortable quarters available. This is the room adjacent to his own chambers." Heat flooded Celeste's cheeks. "The Alpha King's private wing? That's too much. I can't possibly." "You can, and you will." The new voice was deep and familiar, and it sent an unexpected shiver down Celeste's spine. Ronan stood in the doorway, filling the frame with his broad shoulders. In the daylight streaming through the windows, Celeste could see him more clearly than she had during yesterday's chaos. He was handsome in a way that was almost intimidating. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw shadowed with stubble, and those storm-gray eyes that seemed to see straight through her defenses. He wore simple clothes today, dark jeans and a gray Henley that clung to a muscular frame, but the power radiating from him was unmistakable. "Your Majesty," Celeste stammered, trying to bow her head in submission while still holding Luna. "I thank you for everything. I don't know how I can ever repay—" "Stop." Ronan crossed the room with that same predatory grace she'd noticed yesterday. He pulled a chair close to the bed and sat, bringing himself to her eye level. "You owe me nothing. What happened yesterday was unacceptable. No wolf should be treated that way, mate bond or not." His jaw clenched, and Celeste got the sense that he was holding back significant anger. Not at her, she realized with surprise, but on her behalf. "I'll leave you two to talk," Margaret said tactfully. "Luna ate about an hour ago, but she'll be hungry again soon. Call if you need anything." After the healer left, closing the door softly behind her, silence stretched between them. Celeste looked down at Luna, using her daughter as a shield against the intensity of Ronan's gaze. Being this close to him made her wolf stir restlessly, and that made no sense. Her wolf should be half dead from the rejection, barely conscious. Instead, she felt aware, alert in a way she hadn't been in months. "How are you feeling?" Ronan asked finally. "Sore. Confused." Celeste dared a glance at him. "Grateful. Your Majesty, what you did yesterday, stopping the ceremony, protecting us. Why? You don't even know me." Something flickered across Ronan's face, an expression she couldn't quite read. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, and Celeste caught that pine and midnight scent again. Her wolf practically purred. "I was visiting the Silver Moon Pack for preliminary council meetings," Ronan said. "I was walking the territory when I felt something. A pull. Urgent and undeniable. It led me to the ceremonial grounds." His eyes met hers and Celeste's breath caught. "The moment I saw you, collapsed and in pain while your mate stood there speaking his cruel words, I knew I couldn't walk away. I had to protect you." "But why?" Celeste pressed. "I'm nobody. A rejected mate carrying another man's child. You're the Alpha King. This could cause political complications with the Silver Moon Pack. And for what?" Ronan was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached out and traced one finger along Luna's tiny hand. The baby's fingers curled reflexively around his, gripping tight, and Celeste saw his expression soften with wonder. "Can I tell you something?" he asked quietly. "Something I haven't told anyone else?" Celeste nodded, not trusting her voice. "My first mate betrayed me," Ronan said, his voice carefully neutral in a way that told Celeste the wound still hurt. "She conspired with enemy packs, sold pack secrets for power. When I discovered the truth, she tried to kill me. She died in the attempt, and the mate bond. It destroyed something in me when it severed. I swore I would never trust another mate bond again, never let myself be that vulnerable." He looked up at Celeste then, and she saw pain in his eyes. Old pain, deeply buried but never fully healed. "For 3 years, I've kept that vow." Ronan continued. "I've had lovers but never let anyone close, never felt even a flicker of the bond with anyone else, until yesterday." Celeste's heart started pounding. "Yesterday?" "When I saw you on those ceremonial grounds, when our eyes met." Ronan's hand was still touching Luna's, but his gaze was locked on Celeste's. "I felt it. The mate bond, snapping into place like it had been waiting for me to find you. It was so strong, so immediate. that I couldn't deny it even if I wanted to. No, no, that wasn't possible. Celeste shook her head, even as her wolf yipped with excitement inside her mind. That can't be right. I already have a mate. Had a mate. The bond with Marcus is still there, broken but not fully severed. I can't have another. The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes, Ronan interrupted gently. Marcus may have been your first bond, but I don't think he was ever meant to be your true mate. Sometimes the goddess gives us starter bonds, relationships that teach us what we need to learn before we're ready for our real mate. Celeste wanted to argue, but the words died in her throat. Because now that he'd said it, she could feel it. That golden thread between them, new and strong and completely different from the brittle, painful connection to Marcus. Her wolf recognized Ronan, had recognized him from the moment he'd knelt beside her on the ceremonial grounds. She'd been too traumatized, too weak to fully process it then, but now... I don't understand, Celeste whispered. Why would the goddess do that to me? Let me bond with Marcus. Let me carry his child. Go through all of that pain just to give me a different mate? Maybe because you needed Luna, Ronan said, looking down at the baby with such tenderness that Celeste's throat tightened. Maybe because your daughter is meant for something important, and you needed to be her mother. Or maybe... He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. Maybe we both needed to be broken before we could be whole together. Tears burned behind Celeste's eyes. I'm so broken, she confessed. The rejection, even though I knew it was coming, it destroyed something in me. My wolf is barely there. I'm weak. I have a newborn. I have nothing to offer you. Stop. Ronan's hand left Luna's and moved to Celeste's face, cupping her cheek with gentle fingers. The touch sent electricity through her entire body. You're not weak. You're the strongest person I've ever met. You endured months of emotional abuse from your mate. You chose your daughter's life over your own comfort. You gave birth during a rejection ceremony and survived. Celeste. Weak wolves don't do that. A tear escaped and rolled down her cheek. Ronan's thumb caught it, wiping it away. I'm not asking you to accept the mate bond right now, he continued softly. I know you need time to heal, to process everything that's happened. I'm just asking you to stay here. Let me protect you and Luna, and give yourself space to recover. No pressure, no expectations. Just safety. Celeste searched his face, looking for any sign of deception or hidden agenda. But all she saw was sincerity and a deep, protective concern that made her chest ache. Marcus will demand I return, she said quietly. Alpha Thorn will support him. I'm still technically part of the Silver Moon Pack, and the rejection wasn't completed. Marcus and Alpha Thorn can demand all they want, Ronan said, and steel entered his voice. You're under my protection now. They have no authority over you. In fact, he pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket and handed it to her. This came this morning, an official demand from Marcus for your return, claiming you stole pack property and that Luna isn't his child. Celeste's blood ran cold as she unfolded the paper and read Marcus's accusations. Pack resources, theft, infidelity, lies upon lies, designed to paint her as the villain. He's trying to build a legal case to take Luna from me, she realized, her arms tightening around her daughter. If he can prove I'm unfit or criminal, he could claim custody rights even after rejecting me. He can try, Ronan said grimly. He won't succeed. I've already sent my response. You and Luna are permanent residents of the Royal Pack under my direct protection. Any legal action Marcus wants to pursue will go through the Interpack Council, where I happen to have significant influence. Despite the fear clawing at her chest, Celeste felt a flicker of hope. You'd do that? Go up against an entire pack for someone you just met? Ronan's eyes softened. You're my mate, Celeste. Even if you're not ready to accept that yet, I am. And I protect what's mine. The possessive growl in those last words should have frightened her. After months of Marcus's controlling behavior, she should have flinched at any hint of a male trying to claim ownership. But somehow, with Ronan, it felt different. It felt like safety rather than a cage. Luna stirred in her arms, making small mewling sounds. Celeste looked down to find her daughter's blue eyes open, staring up at her with that intense, unfocused gaze of newborns. "She's beautiful," Ronan said softly. "She has your nose." Celeste laughed, the sound watery but genuine. "She has Marcus's coloring, though. The dark hair." "Children are their own people," Ronan said. "She doesn't have to be defined by either of her biological parents. She can just be Luna." Something about the way he said it, with such certainty and acceptance, made Celeste's decision for her. Maybe she wasn't ready to fully accept the mate bond. Maybe she needed time to heal from Marcus's rejection and abuse. But she could stay here. She could let Ronan protect her while she figured out her next steps. "Okay," Celeste said quietly. "We'll stay. For now." The smile that broke across Ronan's face was like the sun coming out from behind clouds. "Thank you," he said. "I promise you won't regret it." As Luna began to fuss in earnest, signaling her hunger, Ronan stood to give Celeste privacy. But before he left, he paused at the door and looked back. "Celeste, for what it's worth, I'm glad I found you. Both of you." After he left, Celeste settled Luna to nurse, wincing slightly at the unfamiliar sensation. As her daughter latched on and began to eat, Celeste looked around the luxurious room that was now, apparently, hers. Her wolf was stronger today, she realized. Not fully recovered, but definitely more present than she'd been in weeks. And that golden thread connecting her to Ronan pulsed with warmth, completely different from the cold, fraying bond with Marcus that still ached in her chest. She had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in months, sitting in a sunlit room with her daughter in her arms and a true mate bond humming in her soul, Celeste allowed herself to hope. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of sleepless nights, constant feedings, and gradual healing. Celeste's body slowly recovered from the trauma of childbirth, though her heart remained cautious. Margaret checked on her daily, pronouncing both mother and daughter healthy and thriving. Luna was a good baby. All things considered, she only woke twice a night to eat, and during the day she was content to sleep or stare at the world with those solemn blue eyes. But the biggest surprise wasn't Luna's temperament. It was Ronan. The Alpha King, ruler of the most powerful pack in the Northern Territories, apparently had a talent for infant care that no one had expected. He visited multiple times every day, often bringing food that he'd personally selected from the kitchen. He sat with Celeste during Luna's fussy periods, holding the baby with surprising competence while Celeste grabbed a precious few minutes to shower or rest. "Where did you learn to do that?" Celeste asked one afternoon, watching as Ronan expertly swaddled Luna into a tight burrito. The baby, who had been fussing moments before, immediately calmed. "My beta Devon has 3 pups," Ronan said, grinning as Luna yawned. "I've been honorary uncle to them all. Devon's mate Sophia taught me the basics. Said it was important for pack leaders to understand what their members go through." "Most alphas wouldn't bother," Celeste said quietly. "Most alphas are idiots." Ronan settled into the rocking chair with Luna, the tiny infant looking almost comically small against his broad chest. "A pack is only as strong as its weakest member. If we don't care for our young, our elderly, our vulnerable, then what's the point of having a pack at all?" Celeste watched him rock her daughter, and something in her chest cracked open. This was what a true mate looked like. This was what partnership was supposed to be. Shared burdens, mutual respect, genuine care. Marcus had never held her during her pregnancy, had never asked how she was feeling or what she needed. He'd made it clear that her pregnancy was her problem, her burden to bear alone. and she'd accepted that because she'd thought the mate bond meant she had to. But watching Ronan with Luna, she understood what she'd been missing, what she deserved. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Ronan asked, and Celeste realized she'd been staring. "Just, thank you," she said, "for all of this. For being kind to Luna even though she's not yours." Something flickered across Ronan's face. "Celeste, can I tell you something?" "Of course. When I look at Luna, I don't see Marcus's daughter or someone else's child," Ronan said, his voice low and intense. "I see your daughter, the baby you chose to protect, even at the cost of everything. That makes her important. That makes her mine to protect, too." Celeste's wolf practically howled with joy at those words, and Celeste herself felt her carefully maintained walls crumble a little more. "My wolf is stronger," she admitted quietly. "Every day, a little bit stronger. Margaret says it's because my body is healing, but I think it's more than that." "The mate bond," Ronan said. "Even though you haven't fully accepted it, it's feeding your wolf, strengthening her." Celeste nodded. "I can feel it. The connection to you, getting stronger every day. And the bond with Marcus, getting weaker. It barely hurts anymore when I think about him." "Good." Ronan's expression darkened. "He doesn't deserve even a moment of your thoughts." As if summoned by speaking his name, a sharp knock sounded at the door. Margaret poked her head in, her expression worried. "Your Majesty, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a situation. Beta Marcus is at the gates, demanding an audience. He's brought half the Silver Moon Pack's warriors with him." Celeste's blood turned to ice. Her arms instinctively reached for Luna, and Ronan immediately handed the baby over before standing. "How dare he come here?" Ronan growled, his alpha dominance flaring so strong that even Margaret whimpered slightly. He took a breath, visibly controlling himself. "Keep them safe, Margaret. I'll handle this." "Wait," Celeste said, struggling to her feet despite Margaret's protest. Her body was still sore, still healing, but she couldn't hide in this room while Ronan faced her former mate alone. "I should come with you." "Absolutely not," Ronan said firmly. "You're barely 3 weeks postpartum. You need rest, not stress." "He's here because of me," Celeste argued. "Because of Luna. If there's going to be a confrontation, I should—" "No." Ronan's voice was gentle but unyielding. He crossed to her and cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Celeste, you've spent months facing Marcus alone, handling his cruelty and rejection without anyone to stand beside you. You don't have to do that anymore. Let me protect you. Let me handle this." Tears burned behind Celeste's eyes. What if he tries to take Luna? What if there's a legal claim I don't know about? Then I'll fight it. I'll fight him. I'll fight anyone who tries to harm either of you. Ronan's thumb stroked her cheeks. "Trust me. Can you do that?" Celeste looked into his storm-gray eyes and saw absolute certainty. This man, this Alpha King who'd known her less than a month, was ready to go to war for her and her daughter. The mate bond between them glowed warm and golden, stronger than it had ever been. "Okay," she whispered. "I trust you." Ronan's smile was fierce and proud. He pressed a quick kiss to her forehead, the first time he'd kissed her anywhere, and even that chaste touch sent sparks through her entire body, then headed for the door. "Stay with them," he instructed Margaret. "Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me or Devon." After he left and Margaret secured the lock, Celeste sank back onto the bed, clutching Luna to her chest. Her daughter had slept through the entire exchange, peaceful and unaware of the drama unfolding around her. Through the windows, Celeste could see figures gathering in the courtyard below. She recognized Marcus's tall form, surrounded by at least 20 warriors in Silver Moon Pack colors. Her former pack? Here to What? Demand her return? Try to take Luna? Then Ronan strode into view, and even from this distance Celeste could see the power radiating from him. He was flanked by his own wolves, royal pack members who moved with lethal grace. The two groups faced off, and though Celeste couldn't hear the words being exchanged, she could see the tension in every line of Marcus's body. "He's afraid," Margaret said softly, standing beside Celeste at the window. "Beta Marcus. He's trying to hide it, but your Alpha King terrifies him." "He's not my Alpha King," Celeste said automatically. Margaret gave her a knowing look. "Isn't he?" Before Celeste could answer, the confrontation below escalated. Marcus made some gesture, and his warriors stepped forward. Ronan's wolves responded in kind, and for a heart-stopping moment Celeste thought violence would erupt. Then Ronan raised one hand, and every wolf present froze. His dominance was visible even from here, pressing down on everyone in the courtyard. Marcus's warriors actually dropped to their knees, unable to resist the Alpha King's command. Only Marcus remained standing, though he swayed visibly. Ronan stepped closer to him, speaking words Celeste couldn't hear. Whatever he said made Marcus's face go white. The beta stumbled backward, nearly tripping over his own kneeling warriors, then turned and fled toward the gates. The Silver Moon warriors scrambled to follow their beta, and within minutes, the courtyard was clear of visitors. Ronan stood alone for a moment, his shoulders tight with residual anger, then looked up at Celeste's window. Their eyes met across the distance, and even though she couldn't see his expression clearly, she felt the mate bond pulse with reassurance. He'd protected them. He'd sent Marcus running without a single blow being thrown. When Ronan returned to the room 20 minutes later, Celeste was nursing Luna. He paused in the doorway, giving her privacy, but she gestured him in. She was past the point of modesty with him. He'd literally delivered her baby. Nursing in front of him felt perfectly natural. "What did you say to him?" Celeste asked as Ronan settled into the chair across from her bed. "I told him that if he ever came near you or Luna again, I would personally ensure the Silver Moon Pack lost its charter, and all its members were absorbed into other territories," Ronan said calmly. "I told him that I have evidence of his financial mismanagement, embezzlement actually, and that I'd be happy to share it with the Interpack Council if he continued to harass my mate." Celeste's eyes widened. "Embezzlement?" "Devin did some digging after Marcus's first demand for your return. Turns out your former mate has been skimming pack funds for years. Nothing huge, but enough to get him stripped of his beta position and possibly jailed." Ronan's smile was sharp. "I was saving that information for the right moment. This seemed like it." "You blackmailed him." "I protected you," Ronan corrected. "There's a difference. Blackmail would be using the information for personal gain. I used it to ensure a threat to my mate was neutralized." Luna finished nursing and Celeste adjusted her clothing before lifting the baby to her shoulder for burping. "He'll hate you for this," she said quietly. "The Silver Moon Pack will see it as the Royal Pack interfering in their business." "Let them." Ronan stood and crossed to her, perching on the edge of the bed. "Celeste, I need you to understand something. My priority isn't politics or pack alliances. It's you. It's Luna. Everything else is secondary. But your position as Alpha King is meaningless if I can't protect the people I love," Ronan interrupted. The words hung in the air between them. People I love. He'd said it so casually, but the weight of it crashed over Celeste like a wave. "Ronan," she whispered, "you barely know me." "I know enough," he said simply. "I know you're brave and fierce, and you love your daughter more than your own life. I know you have a terrible sense of humor and you snort when you really laugh. I know you take your coffee with too much sugar, and you sing to Luna when you think no one's listening. I know that every day I spend with you, I fall a little harder." Celeste's throat closed up. Luna gave a tiny burp against her shoulder, breaking the intensity of the moment, and Celeste laughed despite the tears streaming down her face. "I'm a mess," she said. "I'm broken and scared, and I have so much baggage." "We're all broken," Ronan said, reaching up to wipe her tears the way he'd done that first morning. "The question isn't whether we have scars, it's whether we let them define us, or whether we let them make us stronger." Luna yawned hugely, her tiny face scrunching up. Ronan laughed and held out his arms. "May I?" Celeste handed over her daughter, watching as Ronan cradled Luna against his chest. The baby immediately settled, her little fist curling into his shirt. Something about the image, this powerful Alpha King holding her tiny daughter with such tenderness, cracked the last of Celeste's resistance. "I'm not ready to fully accept the mate bond," she admitted. The bond with Marcus is still there, even though it's dying. I need to formally sever it before I can truly move forward, and I need time to heal, to figure out who I am outside of being someone's rejected mate." "I understand," Ronan said. "Take all the time you need." "But," Celeste continued, her heart pounding, "I'd like to try. To get to know you, to explore this connection between us, if you're willing to be patient with me." The smile that broke across Ronan's face was radiant. "Celeste, I would wait centuries for you if that's what you needed." Luna chose that moment to spit up on Ronan's expensive shirt. He didn't even flinch, just laughed and grabbed a burp cloth to wipe it up. "Though hopefully it won't take quite that long," he added with a grin. Celeste laughed, the sound bubbling up from somewhere deep inside her. Genuine joy for the first time in what felt like forever. As she watched Ronan clean baby spit up off himself while making silly faces at Luna, she felt her wolf surge stronger than ever before. The mate bond between them glowed brilliant gold, and the broken, painful connection to Marcus faded to almost nothing. Soon, she would formally sever that tie. Soon, she would be free to fully accept what the moon goddess had given her, a second chance, a true mate, and a future that didn't hurt to imagine. For now, though, sitting in a sunlit room with her daughter and the man who'd saved them both, Celeste simply let herself feel hope. And it felt like coming home. The days blended together in a haze of feedings, diaper changes, and stolen moments of sleep. Celeste found herself settling into a rhythm at the Royal Pack mansion, though part of her remained waiting for the other shoe to drop. Good things didn't happen to wolves like her. Rejected, disgraced, carrying another man's child. This peace couldn't possibly last. Yet Ronan seemed determined to prove her wrong. He appeared every morning with breakfast, having learned her preferences with uncanny accuracy. Tea instead of coffee, eggs scrambled soft with cheese, and fresh fruit that burst with sweetness on her tongue. He never stayed long during those early visits, just set the tray down, asked how she'd slept, and checked if she needed anything before heading to his alpha duties. But in the afternoons, he returned and stayed. Today, Celeste found him in the private gardens behind the mansion, a secluded space enclosed by high stone walls covered in climbing roses. She discovered it during one of her tentative explorations of the grounds, desperate for fresh air and sunlight after too many days confined to her room. Now it had become their meeting place, neutral territory, where she could relax without feeling trapped. Ronan sat on a stone bench beneath a willow tree, his shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal corded forearms. He looked up as she approached with Luna cradled against her chest in a soft wrap, and the smile that crossed his face made her stomach flip. "There's my favorite girl," he said, standing. "Which one?" Celeste asked, unable to stop her own smile. "Both of you." Ronan gestured to the bench. "Come sit. I brought something." A wicker basket sat beside the bench, and when Celeste settled herself, Ronan pulled out a children's book. Worn leather binding, pages soft with age. "My mother read this to me when I was a pup," he explained, opening it carefully. "I thought Luna might enjoy it, or at least, she can listen to my voice." Margaret says that helps with development. You talked to Margaret about child development? Celeste couldn't keep the surprise from her voice. Ronan shrugged, looking almost embarrassed. I may have been doing some reading. There's an excellent library here, and Devon's mate Sophia recommended a few books on infant care. Something warm and dangerous unfurled in Celeste's chest. This powerful Alpha King, ruler of the Northern Territories, was reading parenting books for her daughter. For a child that wasn't even his. Ronan, you don't have to. I want to. He interrupted gently. May I? He gestured to Luna, and Celeste carefully transferred the sleeping baby from her wrap to his waiting arms. Ronan settled Luna into the crook of his elbow with practiced ease, supporting her head, and began to read in a low, soothing voice. Celeste watched him, the afternoon sun filtering through the willow branches to paint golden patterns across his dark hair. Luna remained peacefully asleep, her tiny face relaxed and content. A month ago, Celeste had been on her knees in the dirt, giving birth while being rejected. Now she sat in a beautiful garden watching a man who might be her true mate read fairy tales to her daughter. It felt like a dream. It felt too good to be true. You're thinking too hard, Ronan said without looking up from the book. I can practically hear the wheels turning. I'm just trying to figure out why you're doing this. I told you why. He did look up now, storm-gray eyes pinning her in place. You're my mate. A mate you didn't choose, one that came with complications and baggage and a newborn that isn't yours. Celeste. Ronan closed the book, his full attention on her now. Luna stirred slightly but settled again against his chest. Do you know what the worst part of my first mate's betrayal was? She shook her head, her throat tight. It wasn't the conspiracy or the assassination attempt. It was realizing that she'd never really known me. She saw the title, the power, the Alpha King image I project to the world. She never looked deeper, never asked about the person beneath the crown. His jaw tightened, and I never let her. I kept myself closed off, thinking that was strength. That vulnerability was weakness. It can be, Celeste said quietly. Weakness that others exploit. Or it can be the foundation of something real. Ronan shifted, adjusting Luna carefully. These past weeks with you and Luna, I've felt more like myself than I have in years. Not the Alpha King, not the ruler everyone fears. Just Ronan. A male who enjoys reading children's books and doesn't mind baby spit up on his shirts. Celeste laughed despite herself. You say that now. Wait until she has a diaper explosion. I've handled explosive diplomatic situations. I think I can handle an infant's digestive system. His smile faded into something more serious. My point is, I'm choosing this. Choosing you. Not because I have to, not because of some mate bond obligation, but because being with you makes me happy. The words settled over her like a warm blanket, comforting and terrifying in equal measure. Celeste's wolf stirred, stronger now than she'd been in months, purring with contentment at their mate's proximity. I'm scared, Celeste admitted. I'm scared of trusting this, of letting myself hope, and then having it ripped away. I don't think I could survive being rejected again. Then I won't reject you. Ronan said it with such simple certainty that she almost believed him. Celeste, I can't promise that everything will be easy or that there won't be challenges ahead. But I can promise that I will never willingly hurt you. I will never make you choose between me and your daughter. And I will never, ever make you feel like you're not enough. Tears burned behind Celeste's eyes. She blinked them back, looking down at her hands twisted in her lap. Marcus used to say I was too emotional, that I cried too easily. Marcus was an idiot and a bastard. The growl in Ronan's voice made her look up. Your emotions aren't a weakness. They're part of what makes you strong. You feel deeply, you love fiercely, and you'd walk through fire for the people you care about. That's not something to apologize for. Before Celeste could respond, footsteps sounded on the garden path. She tensed automatically, some part of her still waiting for Marcus to appear and drag her back to the Silver Moon pack. But it was Devon who rounded the corner, Ronan's beta and closest friend. She'd met him briefly during her first week here, a tall man with sandy hair and warm brown eyes who'd immediately welcomed her and Luna with genuine kindness. Now, though, his expression was troubled. "Ronan, we have a situation," Devon said, his gaze flicking apologetically to Celeste. "The Silver Moon Pack representatives are here. They're invoking formal council protocols." Ronan's entire body went rigid, his dominance flaring enough to make the air feel heavy. Luna whimpered slightly, and he immediately softened, soothing her with gentle murmurs before carefully handing her back to Celeste. "What grounds?" Ronan asked, his voice deadly calm. "Theft of pack resources, false paternity claims. They're demanding a formal trial." Devon hesitated. "Marcus is with them. And he's brought documentation." Celeste's blood turned to ice. "No, he can't. I didn't steal anything." "I know." Ronan's hand found hers, warm and solid. "This is a power play, nothing more. But we have to address it through proper channels." "What does that mean?" Celeste clutched Luna tighter, her daughter's small weight the only thing anchoring her to reality. "It means Marcus gets his day before the council," Devon said quietly. "With evidence and testimony, and Celeste will have to answer the charges." "Like hell she will." Ronan stood, and the Alpha King was fully present now. All trace of the gentle male who'd been reading fairy tales vanished. "She just gave birth 4 weeks ago. She's still healing. I won't have her subjected to Marcus's harassment." "You might not have a choice," Devon said, and Celeste heard the apology in his voice. "If the council votes to hear the case, royal protection doesn't supersede pack law, especially if they claim she committed crimes before coming under your care." Celeste felt the world tilting. Just when she'd started to feel safe, started to hope, Marcus was dragging her back into his web of manipulation and lies. Her wolf snarled, stronger than she'd been, but still not fully recovered from the rejection. "When?" Ronan demanded. "Tomorrow at noon. The council is convening in the main chamber." Ronan cursed, a vicious sound that made both Devon and Celeste flinch. He paced away a few steps, hands clenched into fists, before forcing himself to take a breath and turn back. "Fine. We'll do this properly. Devon, I need you to pull every record from the Silver Moon Pack's finances for the past 2 years. If Marcus is accusing Celeste of theft, I want to know exactly what he's claiming and whether his own accounting holds up to scrutiny." "Already on it," Devon said. "I also reached out to a few wolves who used to be part of Silver Moon. There might be testimony we can use." "Good." Ronan came back to Celeste, kneeling before the bench so they were eye level. "Listen to me. Marcus can make all the accusations he wants. He has no real evidence because you didn't do anything wrong. This is intimidation, an attempt to force you back under his control. But it won't work." "You don't know that," Celeste whispered. "The council might side with him. I'm just a rejected Omega with no pack standing. He's a Beta with connections and I'm the Alpha King." Ronan interrupted, his eyes blazing. "My mate. My protection. Anyone who wants to get to you goes through me first." The possessive growl in his voice sent shivers down her spine. Celeste wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that his power could shield her and Luna from Marcus's vindictiveness. But she'd learned the hard way that power didn't always protect the vulnerable. "What if the council rules against me?" she asked. "What if they order me to return to Silver Moon?" "They won't. But if they do, then we'll deal with it." Ronan's hands came up to frame her face, gentle despite the fury rolling off him in waves. "Together. Do you understand? You're not facing this alone anymore." Celeste searched his eyes, looking for any hint of doubt or deception. She found only fierce determination and something deeper. Something that looked dangerously like love. Okay, she breathed. Together. The council hearing the next day was exactly as awful as Celeste had feared. The chamber was a massive circular room with high vaulted ceilings and stained glass windows that threw colored light across the marble floors. 12 seats arranged in a semicircle faced a central platform where Celeste stood. Luna in her arms because she'd refused to leave her daughter in the nursery during this ordeal. Ronan sat in the Alpha King's chair, his expression carved from stone, while Devon stood at his right hand. Marcus occupied the petitioner's space on the opposite side of the chamber, flanked by Alpha Thorn and 2 other Silver Moon Pack members Celeste didn't recognize. Her former mate looked smug, confident, and when his eyes met hers, she saw cold satisfaction there. He thought he'd already won. This council is convened to hear formal charges brought by Beta Marcus Ashford of the Silver Moon Pack against Celeste Thorn, currently under the protection of the Royal Pack. Elder Meredith announced. She was the head of the 12-member council, an ancient wolf with silver hair and shrewd eyes. Beta Marcus, present your evidence. What followed was a litany of lies so brazen that Celeste felt dizzy. Marcus claimed she'd been stealing PAC funds for months, diverting resources meant for PAC security into personal accounts. He presented bank statements showing deposits made in her name, transaction records, even testimony from PAC members who swore they'd seen her acting suspiciously. Furthermore, Marcus continued, his voice ringing through the chamber, I have reason to believe the child she carries is not mine. Celeste was seen multiple times in the company of rogue wolves during her pregnancy. I demand a paternity test. That's not true, Celeste said, her voice shaking with rage and fear. I didn't. Silence, Elder Meredith commanded. You will have your chance to respond. Beta Marcus, do you have proof of these allegations beyond circumstantial evidence? Marcus smiled, and it made Celeste's stomach turn. I have signed affidavits from 3 PAC members willing to testify under oath. I have financial records that clearly show the discrepancies, and I have this. He pulled out a folder and handed it to the nearest council member. Celeste watched as it was passed around, each elder's expression growing more stern as they reviewed whatever lies Marcus had fabricated. These are serious charges, Elder Meredith said finally. Celeste Thorn, how do you answer? Celeste's mind raced. She'd never stolen anything, had never even had access to PAC funds. The bank accounts Marcus mentioned didn't exist, or if they did, someone had created them in her name. And the paternity question was absurd. Luna was barely a month old, and clearly Marcus's daughter with her dark hair and amber-tinged eyes. But how could she prove any of that? She was one rejected Omega against an entire PAC's testimony. Your Majesty, Devon said quietly, stepping forward. If I may? Ronan nodded, his jaw clenched so tight Celeste could see the muscle jumping beneath his skin. Council members, I've taken the liberty of conducting my own investigation into the Silver Moon Pack's financial records, Devon said, his voice calm and professional. With the Alpha King's authority, I requested full disclosure of their accounts for the past 3 years. What I found was illuminating. He produced his own folder, much thicker than Marcus's, and began distributing copies to the council. You'll notice that the deposits allegedly made to accounts in Celeste's name correspond exactly with withdrawals made from the PAC Security Fund. However, those accounts were not opened by Celeste. They were opened by Beta Marcus himself, using her identification documents which he had access to as her mate. Marcus's expression flickered. That's ridiculous. Why would I? Because you've been embezzling PAC funds for 2 years, Devon interrupted smoothly. The accounts in Celeste's name were meant to be a cover, a way to deflect suspicion if anyone noticed the missing money. You were creating a scapegoat. When Celeste became pregnant and you decided to reject her, You saw an opportunity to tie up that loose end by framing her for your crimes. The council chamber erupted in murmurs. Several elders leaned forward, studying the documents with renewed interest. Marcus's face had gone pale, then flushed with anger. "This is fabrication," he snarled. "The royal pack is protecting its own. We have testimony from 3 former Silver Moon Pack members who witnessed you making these transactions." Devon continued. "We have digital forensics showing that the accounts were accessed exclusively from your personal devices. And we have this." He pulled out a final document with a flourish. Beta Marcus's personal financial records, which show deposits of amounts identical to those stolen from the pack, made to offshore accounts in his mate's pack territories. "I believe you were planning to disappear with the money once you'd fully rejected Celeste and eliminated the connection to Silvermoon." The silence that followed was deafening. Celeste stood frozen, Luna beginning to fuss in her arms, barely able to process what was happening. Devon had built an entire case against Marcus, had exposed his lies so thoroughly that even Alpha Thorn looked shocked. Elder Meredith's eyes were ice as she regarded Marcus. "These are extremely serious counter-allegations, Beta Marcus. Do you have any response?" Marcus's jaw worked soundlessly. His gaze darted around the chamber, landing on Celeste with pure venom. "This is her fault," he spat. "She seduced me, trapped me with a pregnancy I never wanted, and now she's turned the Alpha King against me with her manipulations." "Enough." Ronan's voice cracked through the chamber like thunder. He stood, and the dominance rolling off him made every wolf present, including the elders, lower their gazes. "Beta Marcus, you will not speak about my mate in such terms. You will not spread your lies in this chamber. And you will answer for your crimes." "Your mate?" Marcus's laugh was bitter and slightly unhinged. "She's carrying my child. The bond between us is severed," Ronan growled. "Or it will be. As soon as we formalize the rejection Celeste has every right to claim. You rejected her publicly, cruelly, while she was in labor with your daughter. You have no claim to either of them." "The council will decide that," Elder Meredith interjected, though her tone suggested she agreed with Ronan. "This hearing is adjourned while we review all evidence presented. Beta Marcus, you are to remain on Royal Pack grounds under supervision until we reach a verdict. Celeste Thorn, you are free to return to your quarters." Celeste's legs nearly gave out with relief. Ronan was at her side instantly, his hand at her back, steadying her as they left the chamber. Behind them, she heard Marcus shouting something, but Devon and the guards moved to restrain him. They made it halfway back to her quarters before Celeste's composure shattered. She stopped in the middle of the hallway, Luna crying now in earnest, and felt sobs tear from her throat. "I thought he almost, if Devon hadn't found that evidence." Hey, look at me." Ronan took Luna gently, cradling the baby against his shoulder while wrapping his other arm around Celeste. "It's over. Marcus's lies have been exposed. The council will rule in your favor." "But what if they don't? What if they will?" Ronan's certainty was absolute. "And even if they tried to rule otherwise, I would overrule them. My authority supersedes the council's when it comes to matters of mate protection." Celeste pressed her face against his chest, breathing in his pine and midnight scent while Luna's cries gradually subsided. After a moment, she felt a small hand pat her head. Luna, reaching for her mother even while comfortable in Ronan's arms. "Come on," Ronan said gently. "Let's get you both somewhere safe." But safety turned out to be an illusion. They were crossing the gardens toward the private wing when Celeste's wolf suddenly surged to attention, a warning howl building in her chest. Ronan stiffened at the same instant, his eyes flashing with his wolf. "Get down!" He pushed Celeste behind a stone planter just as something whistled through the air where her head had been. A crossbow bolt embedded itself in the wall behind them, its tip gleaming with something oily and dark. Poison. Stay here, Ronan commanded, thrusting Luna into Celeste's arms before shifting partially, his canines elongating and claws extending. Devon! His beta appeared from around the corner, already in defensive position. 3 figures dressed in black emerged from the shadows of the garden, assassins, moving with deadly purpose toward where Celeste crouched behind the planter. Ronan met the first one with brutal efficiency, his claws raking across the assassin's throat before the attacker could even raise his weapon. Devon engaged the second, their struggle sending them crashing through a rose trellis. The third assassin ignored both of them, focused entirely on Celeste and Luna. She saw the blade in his hand, saw the cold determination in his eyes, and knew she had seconds to act. Her wolf surged forward, stronger than she'd been since the rejection, flooding Celeste with power she'd thought lost forever. When the assassin lunged, Celeste was ready. She rolled to the side, protecting Luna with her body, and lashed out with her leg. The kick connected with the assassin's knee, and she heard something crack. He stumbled, giving her precious seconds to scramble to her feet. But he recovered faster than she expected. The blade came at her face, and Celeste barely managed to twist away. The edge caught her shoulder, slicing through fabric and skin. She bit back a scream, tightening her hold on Luna, who was miraculously quiet. Then Ronan was there, a living embodiment of fury. He caught the assassin's wrist, twisted viciously, and drove his claws through the attacker's chest. The man went down gurgling, and Ronan was already turning to check on Devon, who had subdued his opponent. "Clear," Devon called, breathing hard. "3 down," checking for others. Ronan reached Celeste in 2 strides, his hands running over her and Luna with frantic precision. His fingers found the wound on her shoulder, and his expression went savage. "You're hurt." "It's not deep," Celeste managed, though the pain was starting to register now, hot and sharp. "Luna's fine. She didn't get touched." "Thank the goddess." Ronan pulled off his shirt and pressed it against her shoulder to staunch the bleeding. "Devon, I want this entire compound searched. Find out how they got past our security." "Already on it." Devon was speaking rapidly into a communication device, coordinating with the pack's guards. Celeste looked down at the dead assassin nearest them. His face was covered by a mask, but something about his scent triggered a memory. "Ronan, I know that smell. It's similar to the wolves who were part of the coalition against the royal pack last year. The ones who wanted to destabilize northern territories." Ronan's eyes narrowed. The Shadowfang rebels. But they were disbanded after we arrested their leaders. "Maybe not as thoroughly as we thought," Devon said grimly, returning from his brief patrol. "I found evidence they came over the east wall. Someone deactivated the security wards." "An inside job." Ronan's voice was deadly quiet. "Someone in my pack betrayed us." The implications of that hung heavy in the air. If the royal pack itself had been compromised, nowhere was safe. And if these assassins had been targeting Celeste and Luna specifically, which they clearly had been, then Marcus's accusations were the least of their problems. "Why me?" Celeste whispered, looking down at Luna's peaceful face. Her daughter had somehow fallen asleep despite the chaos, exhausted from crying. "I'm nobody. Why would anyone want to kill us?" "I don't know," Ronan admitted, "but I'm going to find out." He scooped Celeste and Luna into his arms, ignoring her protests that she could walk, and carried them toward the main building. Devon fell into step beside them, his expression troubled. "There's something else you should know," the beta said quietly. "While I was investigating the Silver Moon Pack's finances, I found some interesting communications. Marcus has been in contact with several wolves connected to the old Shadowfang coalition, including someone named Elder Bartholomew." "Bartholomew sits on the council," Ronan said, his tone dangerous. "Are you telling me one of our own elders is working with our enemies?" "I'm saying Marcus's reach goes deeper than we thought, and if the prophecy Elder Meredith mentioned this morning is real." What prophecy? Celeste interrupted. Devon and Ronan exchanged glances. Finally, Ronan sighed. There's an old prophecy that's been circulating among the packs. Something about a child born during a rejection ceremony being the key to uniting the territories and ending a coming war. Most dismissed it as superstition. But Luna was born during a rejection ceremony, Celeste finished, her blood running cold. You think someone believes she's this prophesied child? And they want to kill her to prevent whatever she's supposed to do? It's a theory, Devon said carefully. One we need to investigate. They reached Ronan's private chambers, and he finally set Celeste down on his bed, not the guest room where she'd been staying, but his own quarters. The space was masculine and elegant, dominated by a massive four-poster bed and furnished in dark woods and deep blues. You're staying here, Ronan said, brooking no argument. Both of you. These are the most secure rooms in the entire compound. Guards at every entrance, reinforced walls, and my wolf will know if anyone tries to approach. Ronan, I can't take your bed. You can, and you will. He cupped her face, his thumb careful of the wound on her shoulder. Celeste, someone just tried to kill you and Luna. They knew where you'd be, knew the best approach, and they came armed with poison-tipped weapons. This wasn't a random attack. This was planned. The weight of what he was saying pressed down on her. She'd thought Marcus was her biggest threat, but he was just a piece of a much larger, more dangerous puzzle. I'm putting you in danger, Celeste said quietly. By being here, by accepting your protection, I'm making you a target too. I've been a target my entire life. It comes with the crown. Ronan's expression softened. But you and Luna are worth any risk. Do you understand that? Celeste wanted to argue, wanted to protest that no one was worth risking a kingdom for. But the look in Ronan's eyes stopped her. This wasn't just about duty or honor or even the mate bond. This was something deeper, something that had been growing between them over these past weeks of quiet domesticity and stolen moments. This was real. I'm scared, she admitted. So am I. Ronan pressed a kiss to her forehead, gentle and reverent. But we'll face it together. I promise. As Devon left to coordinate security and Margaret arrived to tend Celeste's wound, she let herself lean into Ronan's strength. Luna slept on, peaceful and unaware of the storm gathering around her small life. And somewhere in the compound, enemies plotted in the shadows, determined to prevent a prophecy that might change everything. The morning after the assassin's attack, Celeste woke in Ronan's bed with Luna nestled beside her in a protective nest of pillows. The bandage on her shoulder pulled when she moved, a sharp reminder of how close they'd come to death. Sunlight streamed through the windows, peaceful and at odds with the turmoil churning in her chest. She couldn't stay here. Every moment she remained under Ronan's protection put him and his pack in greater danger. The prophecy, the assassins, Marcus's machinations, all of it centered on her and Luna. If she disappeared, maybe the threats would follow her away from the royal pack. The thought of leaving Ronan made her wolf howl in protest, but Celeste forced herself to be practical. Better a broken mate bond than a dead alpha king. She spent the day preparing in secret, gathering supplies while Ronan coordinated with Devon about the security breach. Margaret helped her check Luna's health, unaware that Celeste was memorizing every detail about infant care she might need on her own. By evening, when the Elder Council demanded an emergency session to discuss the assassination attempt, Celeste knew it was time. The council chamber was tense when Ronan entered, his dominance rolling off him in waves. Celeste watched from the gallery, Luna sleeping against her chest, as Elder Meredith called the session to order. Your Majesty, recent events have forced us to make a difficult decision. The elderly wolf began, her expression grave. The presence of Celeste Thorne and her child has brought considerable danger to the royal pack. Assassins have breached our walls. Council members stand accused of corruption. The stability of our entire territory is at risk. Get to the point, Ronan growled. Elder Bartholomew, one of the three elders Devon had flagged as suspicious, leaned forward. The council has voted. You must choose. Send the female and her child away to preserve the pack's safety, or abdicate your throne to be with your mate. You cannot have both. The silence that followed was suffocating. Celeste felt her heart crack open, watching Ronan's jaw clench with fury. She couldn't let him make this choice. She wouldn't be responsible for destroying everything he'd built. Before Ronan could respond, she stood. I choose for him. Every head turned toward her. Ronan's eyes flashed with alarm. Celeste, don't... I'm leaving, she said, her voice surprisingly steady despite the tears burning behind her eyes. Tonight, Luna and I will go somewhere safe, somewhere far from here. The threats will follow us, and your pack will be protected. Absolutely not, Ronan snarled, starting toward her, but Devon caught his arm. It's already decided, Celeste continued, looking only at Ronan now, memorizing every detail of his face. Thank you for everything you've done for us. I'll never forget your kindness. She turned and walked out before her courage failed, before she could see the devastation in his eyes and change her mind. Behind her, she heard Ronan roar her name, heard the scuffle as Devon and other pack members physically restrained their alpha king. By the time night fell, Celeste had gathered her meager possessions and bundled Luna into a warm carrier. The note she left on Ronan's pillow was simple. I'm saving you the only way I can. Find happiness. You deserve it. See, she slipped out through the gardens, past guards she'd learned to avoid during her weeks exploring the grounds. The mate bond stretched and pulled with each step away from Ronan, growing more painful until she thought it might tear her apart. But she kept walking, following the forest paths Devon had once shown her, heading toward the neutral territories where rejected wolves sometimes found sanctuary. Behind her, the royal pack mansion blazed with light as alarms began to sound. Ronan had found her note. Ronan stood in his empty chambers, Celeste's note crumpled in his fist, and felt something break loose inside him. The careful control he'd maintained his entire reign, the measured responses and political considerations, all of it shattered against the simple fact that his mate had fled to protect him. How long? He demanded, his voice dangerously quiet. Devon checked his watch. Guards estimate she left 40 minutes ago. She has a head start, but she's on foot with an infant. We can catch her. The council? Fuck the council. Devon's eyes blazed with loyalty. Half of them are corrupt anyway. You want to chase your mate? Then let's chase her. Ronan looked at his beta, his oldest friend, and saw absolute conviction there. Behind Devon, other pack members had gathered, warriors, healers, even some of the younger wolves who'd grown fond of Celeste during her stay. They all wore the same expression, ready to follow their alpha king wherever he led. Elder Bartholomew and his conspirators need to be dealt with first, Ronan said, his tactical mind overriding his desperate need to run after Celeste immediately. Devon, arrest them. All three. Charges of treason, conspiracy with enemy forces, and endangering pack members. My pleasure. Devon's smile was feral. The rest of you, gather supplies for a hunt. We leave in 20 minutes. Ronan strode toward the door, then paused, looking back at the assembled wolves. The council demanded I choose between my mate and my throne. I choose her. Anyone who has a problem with that can challenge me now. Silence. Then, as one, every wolf in the room bowed their heads in submission and support. Good. Let's bring her home. The arrests happened swiftly. Elder Bartholomew tried to protest, claiming diplomatic immunity, but Ronan's fury was a physical force that drove the corrupt elder to his knees. The evidence Devon had compiled was damning. Communications with Shadowfang rebels, payments from enemy packs, even orders to facilitate the assassin's entry into royal pack grounds. You sold out your own pack, Ronan said, his voice cold enough to freeze blood. You put my mate and her child in danger for money and political favor. Give me one reason I shouldn't execute you right here. The prophecy, Bartholomew gasped, his face pressed against the marble floor by Ronan's dominance. The child threatens everything. If she unites the packs, the old power structures will collapse. We'll lose your positions, your influence. Ronan's lip curled with disgust. You'd murder an infant to maintain political power. Guards, take them to the cells. They'll face formal charges when I return. With the immediate threat neutralized, Ronan finally allowed himself to focus on the mate bond. It stretched northwest, a golden thread that grew more painful with distance, but also guided him like a beacon. Celeste was headed toward the neutral territories, probably seeking the sanctuary shelter he'd heard operated there for rejected wolves. Smart, safe, and absolutely unacceptable. She's 3 hours ahead now, Devon reported as they assembled at the northern gate. 20 wolves in total, all loyal warriors who'd volunteered for this hunt. But she's traveling slow with the baby. We can make up time if we shift and run hard. Ronan nodded, already pulling off his shirt. The shift came easily, his wolf surging forward with desperate need to reach their mate. Around him, his warriors shifted too, a pack united in purpose. They ran through the night, following the mate bond and Celeste's faint scent trail. Ronan pushed them hard, driven by a growing sense of urgency he couldn't quite explain. Something was wrong. The bond felt strained, almost frantic, as if Celeste was in distress. Your Majesty, one of the scouts called out, shifting back to human form. There are other tracks here, multiple wolves, moving fast in the same direction as our target. Enemy forces. Ronan's blood ran cold. They'd found Celeste's trail too. Double time, he commanded, pouring on more speed. His wolf's powerful legs ate up the miles, branches whipping past, the forest a blur of shadow and moonlight. The bond pulled tighter, more urgent, and underneath it, he felt something new. Fear. Not his own. Celeste's. They were too late. The enemy had already found her. The shelter appeared just after dawn, a rambling building of weathered wood tucked into a clearing surrounded by protective wards. Celeste had stumbled through the forest all night, Luna fussing in her carrier, until she'd finally spotted the sanctuary's marker stones. A kind-faced woman named Sarah had welcomed her inside, asking no questions about her story or why she'd arrived alone with an infant. That was the shelter's purpose, to provide safe haven for rejected wolves who had nowhere else to go. Now, sitting in a small room with Luna nursing at her breast, Celeste allowed herself to feel the full weight of what she'd done. The mate bond ached constantly, a hollow pain in her chest that whispered she'd made a terrible mistake. Ronan's fury and fear echoed through the connection, and she knew he was coming for her. But she'd done the right thing. She had to believe that. We don't get many visitors this far out, Sarah said, bringing her tea and warm bread. You're safe here, dear. No one can enter the sanctuary without permission. The wards see to that. Celeste managed a weak smile. Thank you. We just need a few days to rest. Then we'll move on. She didn't mention the prophecy or the assassins or the Alpha King who'd claimed her as his mate. The less these kind people knew, the safer they'd be. Luna finished eating, and Celeste had just begun to burp her when she felt it. A cold prickle of awareness, her wolf snarling a warning. The protective wards around the shelter flickered, then shattered like glass. No, Sarah whispered, her face going pale. That's impossible. Those wards have held for 50 years. Through the window, Celeste saw them. At least 30 wolves in attack formation circling the shelter. Some wore the markings of the Shadowfang Coalition. Others bore no pack insignia at all. Rogue mercenaries hired for one purpose, killing her and Luna. Everyone inside, Sarah shouted, and the shelter erupted into organized chaos. Rejected wolves, mostly females with children, rushed to defensive positions they'd clearly practiced. Someone thrust Luna into Celeste's arms while another wolf helped her toward the reinforced basement, but they'd never make it. The enemy was already at the doors, already breaking through windows. A rejected Omega named Marie shifted to her wolf form, placing herself between the attackers and a group of terrified pups. She went down under 3 enemy wolves, her death cry piercing the morning air. Something inside Celeste snapped. Luna was crying, terrified by the chaos and violence. These innocent wolves, already hurt and rejected by their former packs, were dying to protect her daughter. And Celeste was supposed to just hide? Just let others fight her battles while she cowered in a basement? No, not anymore. She handed Luna to Sarah, meeting the older woman's frightened eyes. Take her to the basement, keep her safe no matter what happens to me. Dear, you can't. I can. Celeste felt her wolf surge forward, stronger than she'd ever been, fed by the mate bond with Ronan even across the distance. I'm done being weak. I'm done being a victim. She walked toward the shattered front door where enemy wolves poured through. Her hands began to glow with silver light, power she'd never known she possessed crackling along her skin. The attackers saw her and laughed, seeing only a rejected Omega who'd recently given birth. They stopped laughing when she raised her hands and a wall of pure force exploded outward. 5 wolves flew backward, crashing into trees hard enough to crack bark. The others hesitated, suddenly uncertain. Celeste felt the power flowing through her. Not just her wolf's strength, but something ancient and vast, something that had been sleeping inside her until this moment of desperate need. You want my daughter? Her voice echoed with power, making the very air shimmer. You'll have to go through me. The next attacker lunged. Celeste caught him mid-leap with her power, holding him suspended in the air before slamming him into the ground. Another came from her left. She spun and sent a bolt of silver light that dropped him instantly. Behind her, the other rejected wolves rallied, inspired by her display. Sarah shifted to a gray wolf form, her battle scars visible, but her spirit unbroken. Together, they held the line. But there were too many. Even with her newfound power, Celeste couldn't be everywhere at once. An enemy wolf slipped past her defenses, heading for the basement where Luna waited. Celeste screamed, throwing everything she had at the attacker, but she was too far away. A massive black wolf exploded from the forest, catching the enemy mid-stride and tearing out his throat with savage efficiency. Ronan. Even in wolf form, she'd recognize him anywhere. The sheer size, the storm-gray eyes, the protective fury radiating from every line of his body. Behind him, Devon and 20 Royal Pack warriors flooded into the clearing, turning the tide instantly. The enemy forces tried to retreat, but they were surrounded, outmatched, and facing an alpha king who'd just watched someone threaten his mate. It was over in minutes. Ronan shifted back to human form as the last enemy wolf surrendered, not bothering with modesty as he strode straight to Celeste. She was still glowing with residual power, her hands trembling with adrenaline and shock. You left, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I was protecting you. I don't need protecting, I need you. He cupped her face, heedless of the blood and dirt covering them both. Don't you understand? There is no throne, no kingdom, no duty more important than you and Luna. I choose you. I will always choose you. The mate bond between them blazed golden bright, and Celeste felt the last of her resistance crumble. I was so scared. The prophecy, the danger. We face it together. Ronan pressed his forehead to hers. No more running. No more sacrificing yourself. We're stronger together, Celeste. What you just did, the power you showed. Do you understand what that means? She shook her head, still dazed. You're not just my mate. You're something more. Something the prophecy knew about. Devon approached. Luna bundled in his arms. The baby was crying, reaching for her mother. The enemy wasn't trying to kill Luna. They were trying to kill you before you could fully come into your power. Celeste took her daughter, and the moment Luna settled against her chest, the silver glow faded. But she could still feel it there, waiting beneath her skin, a protector's magic, meant to shield and defend. The prophecy child needs her guardian, Sarah said softly, approaching with wonder in her eyes. Luna will unite the packs, but you'll keep her safe while she grows into her destiny. That's why you were rejected by your first mate, why you suffered. You needed to be broken down and built back up stronger. You needed to find your true mate and your true purpose. Ronan's arms came around both Celeste and Luna, solid and warm. Then let's finish this, he said. Let's end the threats once and for all. Because the enemy forces had retreated, but they hadn't surrendered. And somewhere out there, Marcus and the remaining Shadowfang leaders were planning their next move. The final battle was coming. But this time, Celeste wouldn't face it alone. The valley between territories had been neutral ground for centuries, used for peace talks and treaty negotiations. Now, it would be a battlefield. Word had spread quickly after the shelter attack. Celeste's display of power, Luna's prophesied destiny, Ronan's absolute claim of his mate. All of it had forced the issue that the packs had been dancing around for years. Unite or remain divided. Accept the prophecy or fight it. The enemy had chosen to fight. Marcus stood at the head of a coalition of traditionalist wolves, packs who feared change, who clung to old power structures and territorial divisions. Behind him were the remaining Shadowfang leaders, rogue mercenaries, and wolves who'd been promised positions of power if the prophecy child was eliminated. On the other side, Ronan commanded not just the royal pack, but also allied packs who'd seen Celeste's protective magic and believed in Luna's destiny. Devon stood at his right hand, while Celeste stood at his left with Luna secured in a protective carrier against her chest. "This is madness," Alpha Thorn called out, having joined Marcus's side despite the evidence of his beta's corruption. "You'd risk war over one female and her child?" "I'd risk anything for my mate," Ronan replied, his voice carrying across the valley. "But this isn't about Celeste and Luna anymore. This is about whether we continue to let fear and tradition divide us, or whether we embrace the future the moon goddess has shown us." Marcus stepped forward, his amber eyes blazing with hatred. "The future? You mean a future where our packs lose their autonomy? Where we bow to some prophesied child queen? I rejected Celeste and her bastard. I refuse to accept this fantasy." "Luna is your daughter," Celeste said quietly, but her voice carried with power. "Look at her, Marcus. Really look. She has your eyes, your coloring. You can deny it all you want. But that doesn't change the truth." For just a moment, Marcus's gaze flickered to the baby visible in her carrier. Luna was awake, her blue eyes already starting to shift to amber like her father's, watching everything with solemn curiosity. Something crossed Marcus's face, too quick to identify, before his expression hardened again. "Even if she is mine by blood, she's nothing to me. You made your choice when you defied me. Now live with the consequences." "So be it." Ronan's dominance flared, and wolves on both sides whimpered under the weight of it. "This ends today, one way or another." The enemy forces charged first, dozens of wolves in coordinated formation, aiming to overwhelm through sheer numbers. But Ronan's warriors met them head-on, and the valley erupted into chaos. Ronan shifted mid-run, his black wolf form massive and lethal. He tore through enemy lines with Devon at his side, their coordination perfect from years of fighting together. Celeste held back, protecting Luna while channeling her power to shield the wounded, to deflect attacks aimed at vulnerable pack members. But the enemy had planned for her magic. A group of wolves broke through the defensive line, heading straight for her. Celeste raised her hands, silver light blazing, but there were too many. She'd have to choose: protect herself, or protect the others around her. The mate bond surged with Ronan's alarm as he saw her danger. He tried to reach her, but enemy wolves blocked his path. Celeste made her choice, throwing her shields around a group of younger fighters instead of herself. The lead attacker lunged, jaws aimed for her throat. Celeste braced for the impact, and Luna's eyes began to glow. Pure golden light exploded from the infant, freezing every wolf in the valley mid-motion. Friend and enemy alike, they all stopped, held by a power that transcended anything Celeste had wielded. Luna wasn't crying or frightened. She simply looked around with those glowing eyes, ancient awareness in her baby face. Then the vision hit. Every wolf present saw it simultaneously, a future of united packs, territories working together instead of constantly warring. They saw Luna grown, a wise leader who commanded respect through strength and compassion. They saw prosperity, peace, and power greater than any individual pack had ever achieved. But they also saw the alternative: continued division leading to a war that would destroy them all. Enemy forces from other territories, sensing wolf weakness, moving in to conquer and subjugate. Packs torn apart, bloodlines ended, everything they'd built reduced to ash and memory. The choice was clear: unite or die. The golden light faded and Luna was just a baby again, drowsy from the enormous power she'd channeled, but the vision lingered in every wolf's mind, undeniable in its truth. By the goddess, someone whispered. Marcus stood frozen, staring at Luna with something like horror. What is she? She's hope, Celeste said softly. She's the future. She's your daughter, Marcus, whether you accept it or not. One by one, wolves began to lower their heads in submission, not to Ronan's dominance, but to the truth the prophecy had shown them. Enemy forces dropped their aggressive stances. Even some of the Shadowfang leaders knelt, overwhelmed by what they'd witnessed. Alpha Thorn was the first to formally submit, approaching Ronan with his head bowed. Forgive me, Your Majesty. I let fear and tradition blind me. If the moon goddess has shown this path, who are we to fight it? Others followed, pack leaders offering alliance, warriors pledging loyalty, former enemies acknowledging that they'd been wrong. The battle had ended without a final blow being struck, one not through violence, but through truth. Only Marcus remained standing, his face twisted with conflicting emotions. He looked at Celeste, at Luna, at Ronan, who'd moved to stand protectively beside his mate. I can't, Marcus choked out. I can't admit I was wrong. Can't accept that I rejected. Then don't, Celeste said, surprising everyone. I don't need your acceptance or your apology, Marcus. I needed you once, when we were mated. But that bond is dead. I've found my true mate, and Luna will grow up knowing she's loved and wanted. You can be part of her life or not. That's your choice. But either way, we're moving forward. The finality in her voice seemed to break something in Marcus. He dropped to his knees, not in submission, but in defeat. And finally, let himself grieve what he'd thrown away. Ronan pulled Celeste against his side, careful of Luna between them. The mate bond blazed brilliant gold, fully accepted at last by both of them. Complete it, he murmured against her hair. Accept me fully. Let me be yours as you're already mine. Celeste looked up at him, this alpha king who'd saved her, protected her, loved her through everything. I, Celeste Thorn, accept you, Ronan Blackwood, as my true mate, in this life and all others. The bond snapped into place with such force that everyone in the valley felt the shockwave. Power radiated from them. Ronan's alpha dominance combined with Celeste's protective magic, amplified by the mate bond and Luna's prophetic blessing. It was overwhelming, undeniable, and absolutely right. When the energy settled, Celeste felt complete for the first time in her life. Not because a male had claimed her, but because she'd found her equal, her partner, her mate. "It's done," Devon announced, grinning widely. "The prophecy is fulfilled. Luna is acknowledged, the packs are united, and our Alpha King has his queen." Cheers erupted from the assembled wolves, a sound of celebration rather than battle. The war was over before it could truly begin, ended by truth and acceptance rather than violence. As the sun set over the valley, painting the sky in golds and purples, Celeste stood with Ronan and Luna, looking out over wolves from a dozen different packs mingling peacefully. Tomorrow would bring challenges, restructuring territories, establishing new alliances, helping Luna grow into her destiny. But tonight, they celebrated. A future had been won, a family had been forged, and a rejected wolf had discovered she was never weak at all. She'd just been waiting to find her true strength.